So let's actually add a modifier right now. The first one we do is gonna, like, when the brick falls down, it's going to make the paddle twice the size, so it'll be kind of a benefit modifier. Alright, so let's add a new class. In this class we're just going to call large paddle, and it is going to extend modifier. So extends modifier, and oh yeah, we need to add a constructor, and this is going to be a very small class because all of its functionality is really taken care of by modifier. So large paddle, and then it has to take an int x and an int y so that it knows its position, and then it's going to ask the super constructor to handle that information for it, and we'll just set the color to color dot, let's say, blue, so that we can tell what kind of modifier it is. Now let's check. So what did I call the brick's color? Is not C, it's my color. Okay, so it can't be C because we're adjusting we're utilizing the parent class's color field, and that, believe it or not, is it for the modifier called large paddle. But we have to implement it. We have to make it be able to affect the paddle class. So we're actually going to add in game entity another method to our interface called void modify, and it is going to take a modifier object, and then because we're adding it to the entity interface, game entity, we're going to be asked to add the unimplemented methods in any class that implements game entity. And so you can just hover the mouse over the ball class and add unimplemented methods. Or it's not working, is it? Okay, why is it not working? Oh, we need to just import modifier into this. So import modifier from the package bricks, and let's see, what am I not doing? Oh, do we need to just import modifier here too? Okay, so you need to import modifier into these classes so that the classes that implement this method can actually see them. Great, so we have this method in ball. We're not actually going to use it right now, we'll use it later. We need to do the same thing in our paddle class because paddle also implements game entity, and so we can just hover the mouse over and add unimplemented methods. Then scroll down to the bottom where the unimplemented method was added, and okay, we're good here. So in modify, in the paddle class, what we're going to do is, this is sort of a system that works together, so you're going to have to kind of wait to see how it works. The game panel is going to communicate with the paddle class and send it the modifier when it encounters a modifier. So we just have to say in modify, we just say if m instance of large paddle. So if it is of type large paddle, which we'll have to import, then we're just going to have it use a method that I'll create called large paddle in the paddle class. We'll just have it call that for the sake of clarity, and we need to create large paddle. So public void large paddle, and what this thing is going to do is be responsible for changing the attributes, and then we're going to have to change something in the update method too. So right now we're going to need to create a couple other fields for our class that will help us monitor certain things. So we want the large paddle active to be, we need to be able to tell if large paddle is active, so we're going to have a private boolean to keep track of large paddle active. If the paddle has been changed, we're going to set large paddle active to false at first, because when the game starts, no modifier has been used. And then we're going to have a couple integers to keep track of how long we want the paddle to stay large while it's affected by the modifier. So we're going to say private int target large paddle count. Paddle count. and I'm naming these things pretty long names just so you know exactly what they're doing. And large paddle count. So what this is going to do is large paddle count and target large paddle count. It's going to be like target large paddle count is going to be a number like 200. So we're going to wait, or 500, and then we're going to start large paddle count at 0 when the modifier hits. And once large paddle count gets bigger, then we're going to increment it each time through the loop. And once the large paddle count goes above target large paddle count, we're going to flip the value of large paddle active to false and reset the width of our paddle. So target large paddle count. Let's say we want the paddle to be large for 500 times the loop, which 500 times through the loop, which is about 10 seconds. And then large paddle count, we want to start at 0. Then in large paddle, the method that is called when the modifier hits, we say if not large paddle active. So if the modifier has not been, if the paddle is not already large, paddle width equals paddle width times 2. So let's just double its size, and large paddle active equals true. So now in the update method, we need to add a little thing to keep track of when the large paddle should be made inactive. So we're going to say if large paddle is active, so if that modifier is in effect, we want large paddle count to be incremented each time the method update is called, which happens 50 times a second. So this is going up 50 times a second. And we want to say then if large paddle count goes above target large paddle count, we want to set this thing to inactive. So large paddle active equals false, because we're switching it off now. Large paddle count equals 0, and we need to reset the value of the paddle width to paddle width divided by 2, not 23, 2. And then in the game panel class, we need to add this stuff, but that's probably enough for this video. In the next video, we're actually going to add it and get it to start working so that the modifier drops and it actually affects the paddle. This is enough right now, though.